This is Danielle Boyven, and I'm here with Amanda Charlton. She is an endurance horseback rider and runner and painter.
Hi there, Danielle. How are you?
I'm doing really well. So I'm so excited to do this episode. I actually don't know that much about endurance horseback riding.
Okay.
So I was just, wondering what definitely sets it apart from other types of horse racing. I know there's many different types.
For sure. Well, the foremost key to endurance horseback riding is managing your horse's body over extremely long distances. So endurance races range from 25 miles to 100 miles, most commonly in the United States, which is different than, the horse races that you see on the television, which are just maybe like a lap and a half around the racetrack. And so, most of the time during an endurance race, you're riding your horse at a moderate pace, unless you, of course, have like a real racer, at which point, there might be a little bit of a standoff at the end when you're going full speed. But I think that those are the largest differences. Definitely the veterinary procedures are super, super intense during endurance races for the most part.
Really?
Vets are very stringent on the upkeep of the horses as well, which is something I really appreciate about it.
That's so interesting. How would you say is like the most, difficult part of endurance racing?
The most difficult part of endurance racing for me, and I'm sure that this varies, from horse person to horse person, but for me is just making certain that I'm doing right by the horse. And I definitely, sometimes I get a little bit in my head and I'm wondering, oh gosh, am I pushing them too hard? Am I, asking for too much? I hope that this is safe for them. And so in those moments, it just becomes super, super key just to listen to your horse and make adjustments where necessary. For sure, just definitely always trying to do your best to take care of your partner.
Absolutely. And I've heard, people say that the spiritual connection they have with their horses is something very, very strong. Is that something that you also feel and could elaborate on?
Oh my gosh. I think that my life with horses, has definitely been the reason for my spirituality. I'm not sure if it were not for my connection to them that I would maybe believe so much as I do in at least some sort of organization to things. Let's just leave it at that. But I think horses are empaths to the greatest degree. They feel everything that we feel. And I think the key part to being a good horse person is having that door swing both ways, so that you can connect to your horse's emotional state. So it really is, it's just this amazing sort of, I don't even know what I'd call it, kind of just synchronicity, you and your horse together. It's pretty magical, I would say.
That sounds so magical. Oh my goodness.
Magical, it really
is that a connection that you feel builds over time? Like a relationship or a friendship that slowly builds over time?
I think absolutely. 100%. It's incredible. The Mustangs that I have under my care right now, our relationship has changed and grown so much over the year and a half that they've been in my life. But for sure, I think as well, I think the more time you spend with horses, you can kind of get in that place a little quicker. And horses, are so willing to open up if you are willing to open up to them. So, yeah.
What are their names?
So my Mustangs' names are Little Chief and Bodie. And Bodie got his name because the Bodhi tree is the tree that Buddha sat under for 49 days while he was striving to achieve enlightenment. And during Bodhi's training process, taking a step back and giving him space and just waiting for him was really the key component. So that's why he got his name. And then Little Chief got his name because he's kind of like the opposite. He's a little warrior. He's a little fighter. And he doesn't take any flack from anybody. So with him, it's really just a question of, gaining his respect and going from there.
That's awesome. And
yeah.
So I noticed, with Bodhi, and that legacy there, is that, something that you've researched a lot? Is Buddhism, a story that, you're very passionate with?
I mean, you know what, Danielle? I'm fascinated by all religions. I think that, you know, I think that each religion has something very special to teach us just about the nature of being a human and reality. And I think we're all striving to find the same God. So,
I totally agree.
So Eastern people, it's amazing, you know, the ways we could connect with each other as humans if we just sought for that path a little bit more, you know?
Oh, I totally agree. And I also, I think it's always found it so beautiful and interesting how so many religions, they all come from the want for peace and kindness for everybody.
And it's amazing how that message gets lost, you know? I think just with so much, you know, human involvement in that, you know, it's sad, but sometimes the ego finds its way into those aspects where, I mean, that shouldn't be a part of that, you know, but it happens. And I think that's what really skews the message of that, you know, peace and kindness and empathy, you know, which is, like we said earlier, something that horses have taught me a lot about.
Empathy, and that's, and I know it's always like, to be human is to err, and I think that we as humans, we do a lot of that, which is why I think it's so cool that, you know, we are talking also about these other beings that are living and breathing and not human, but can have such a spiritual connection with humans.
Yes.
And
it's amazing. There's definitely, there's something common, you know, within all of us. Like, I think that's the thing about, you know, working with a species that's so different than humans. They're prey animals. We're predators. They operate on, I believe, like a different plane, and yet we can still connect and we can still feel the same things. I mean, that's where the spirituality comes in. And I'm like, if I can do that with a horse, like, dang, like, we humans should be able to do that with each other, right?
Right. Oh, that is so true. And you also do endurance running. Yeah, I remember before, because we were talking about that before, not on this interview, but like when we met for the first time. Do you want to talk about like what, you know, really inspired you to get into running like yourself as well?
Yeah, for sure. So I've just always really loved running since I was a little kid, you know. But I didn't start doing ultra marathoning, I guess, until like 2 years ago. And I started doing it because I had just recently gotten into endurance horseback riding, and I was kind of like, oh, you know, I want to know what the horses are experiencing, so let me start, you know, I don't know, it's kind of an equality for species thing. I don't think it's right to ask this creature to carry me 25 to 50 to 100 miles unless I can do it on my own 2 feet, you know? So it definitely, I mean, that's how it all started, and then I'm just like so into it. It's so much fun.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What have been, do you think, some of the most like influential races that you've done so far?
Oh, the most influential ones? Gosh, it's amazing because it's like every single one is kind of a different meditation, you know? So each one is special. Which one? That's so hard. They've all been so good. I think the most influential. I don't know. You know what? I think that this most recent one, I did the Leadville 50-mile Silver Rush, and I had my significant other there with me, and I had my mom with me, and a bunch of friends, and I just flew through the whole thing. I felt so strong, and then seeing all their beautiful faces at the finish line, I think that was pretty incredible because thus far my ultramarathoning has been like a very solitary kind of effort, but having all these amazing people supporting me was pretty fun. So, yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And how many races have you competed in your lifetime so far?
I guess thus far, probably no more than 7 or 8, you know, because I started back in 2017 and then kind of like took that year off because I was doing the Mongol Derby, and then after that was kind of done training for things for a minute. And then this year, thus far, I've done 4, but I'm hoping to at least squeeze another in before the end of the year. So
definitely. Wait, so you competed in the Mongol Derby, and that's like a really, really big deal. For anyone that doesn't know, that's like a huge deal. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So the Mongol Derby is the world's longest horse race. It is at least 1,000 kilometers long, which is about 630 miles. And you ride 28 different feral Mongolian horses. across the wilderness. So with no outside support, there is a medical crew there, as well as a ton of veterinary care. But as far as like having people help you during the race, you're on your own. You're allowed to bring 11 pounds of gear, or 11K of gear, which is only about like, I guess, 6 pounds of gear. And yeah, you're just out there and you stay with nomadic Mongolian families along the way. You pick your horse at each horse station. You only ride each horse for about 25 to 30 miles.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the most incredible experience of my life, for sure.
That's insane, and in the best way. Like, and so you don't know these horses. Like, these are just like feral, you said, yeah?
Yeah, you don't know them, and so you show up, and the Mongolian herdsmen have these horses tied to a line, so there'll be about like 75 horses for you to choose from, and you just walk up and down the line and pick your steed, based on the traits that you're looking for, and take off, and you only have 25 or 30 miles to get to know this horse, and then you're off and you're on the next one. So
wow. And how do you feel that affects like the racing during the races, because it's not like one of the two that you know and that you've lived with for, you said, like a year and a half?
Yeah Oh my gosh, I think that is probably the hardest part of the Mongol Derby, and like what separates it from any other long distance horse race in the world. It's just the fact that there are so many different equine personalities, and definitely like from every standpoint of like how to work with this creature who is wild, and then also from the standpoint of their physicality, because you're not really sure what their threshold is, so you're really just trying to like sense it the whole time, and you really don't have anything to go off of, because you like you just said, Danielle, I mean, you don't know the horse, you're not sure. So that was definitely challenging.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I can't even imagine. I'm like, whoa. I'd be like, hey, buddy. And he'd probably look at me and be like, who are you? I'm like, okay, sorry.
Oh, okay, never mind. No, it was really funny because, like, at one point, like, I always love to, like, rub my horses on their butts. Like, it's just what I do. I love it. And they like it, too. So I walk up to this Mongolian horse, and I just, like, put my hand on his rump, and, like, I put my hand on his butt, and that hind leg came out so quick.
No!
And he got me. And then one of the Mongolian herdsmen came up to me, and they're like, no, you do not touch them there.
Oh my god.
So I guess in Mongolian horse culture that's offensive, so I learned my lesson the hard way.
Oh no. But you're telling me you completed this race, yeah? And that's like,
oh yeah,
really like a lot of people don't, yeah?
A lot of people don't, unfortunately. I think there's a ton of like medical issues out there on the steppe, and it's hard, because there's like one helicopter in Mongolia, so
oh, wow.
I mean, if you get injured out there, you'll be out there for at least 12 hours waiting for someone to come get you, and I know that happened to at least one of our riders last in 2017, and it happens every year. I think historically the Mongol Derby has a 50% finish rate, so
wow.
Yeah, so under half the riders typically finish.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that something you think you would ever do again or want to do again?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 100%, Danielle. I'm just like, I'm 28, and I'm like, gosh, okay, I got to get back. Like, it's got to be no more than 5 years. Like, I have to do this again. So I'm just, focusing on my art right now and getting ready for the next big adventure. But eventually, yeah.
That's amazing. And
yeah.
Wait, your art now, I wish that the people listening could hear, or see rather, they can hear, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
But you have this really awesome tiger painting that you're working on. And like,
yes.
do you want to like talk about that? Like what inspired this?
Yeah.
And like,
oh no, I would love to. I love talking about art. Art is really good. So if you do want to check out my artwork, you can head to my Instagram. It's at amanda.charlton.art. And my style is definitely focused on movement, which you can probably, ascertain is kind of really important in my life, is moving. Mm-hmm. And I'm working on this tiger right now, which I think I'm going to call Soul Sister, because it actually, I don't know, it's I don't know. I just feel like it's raised a lot of questions about womanhood for me this past couple weeks. And yeah, it's a commission piece for a gentleman who lives in North Carolina because he went to Clemson University, so he wanted a tiger. Nice. Yeah.
And you said it's like raising a lot of like thoughts about like did you say femininity or like?
Yes, ma'am. Femininity for sure.
Yes.
Oh gosh,
let's talk about that.
It's been intense. Absolutely. I think, gosh, I don't know, just raising questions about like, well, what does it mean to be a strong woman? And like, you know, how hard do you have to fight? And what does that fight look like? And, you know, is there a way to be strong without hurting other people? Like doing it from a place of kindness, you know?
Right.
And I think like as women, it's really hard. Like we're taught that we need to be nice all the time. And you start to realize like, well, being nice and being kind aren't really the same thing, you know?
No, not at all.
Sometimes the kindest thing is a little harsh, and I think that that's something that animals are a lot better at expressing than humans, you know?
Right.
I think our language gets in the way, and yeah, animals are just more in tune with that. So I think like staring into the face of this tiger for the past week, I'm just like, oh gosh, wow.
Right. And I often find that like, you know, as a woman, finding strength and balancing the feminine energy within me and realizing that, you know, compassion and kindness and these things that are often equated as feminine traits are very much strengths. And I feel that, you know, we all have, like men, women, like whomever, have this feminine energy within them and this feminine power that sometimes I think that either we've been socialized or afraid to unlock. And that's really upsetting because I think feminine energy is so powerful, and also trying to figure out what is, because it's really hard for me personally to define my feminine energy, because it's like, well, what is a personality trait versus what is our energy that's within us? But I see like a lot of movies, and I'm going to go on like a mini tangent here for a second.
Go for it. I love this. I love your tangents, Danielle.
Thank you. I see a lot of movies, and when men sometimes write, and I'm not going to say all men because that's obviously, like, we're all individuals, and I would never want to generalize, and I'm about to generalize, but
I say to be human is to err, so.
Yes, to be human is to err. But I often find that I've seen a lot of portrayals of women that happen to have been written by men, where a woman's strength very much comes from like, oh, I'm the tough girl, I have no emotions, I'm just gonna go like bam, 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 and like, I'm tough.
Wow, yeah.
And for me that's always been really frustrating because I feel that women are so, and all people are so beautiful and varied and find strengths in different ways, whether it be like your strength is your compassion, or your strength is your bravery, or your strength is, you know, your aggression, or your strength is your willingness to be able to find peace in different ways. And I talked a little bit about this with Joseph the other day, but yeah, I just think that finding that feminine energy and embracing it, whatever that may mean to you in what being a woman is just a very important step in growing up and finding yourself. And that's why I think it's so cool that, you know, you're finding a lot of that in this piece that you're creating.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Danielle, that's yes, like 100% yes. I think that that's such a fascinating point, and it is amazing that, like, you know, women can be portrayed as that, but it's so sad because it's like men go through the same thing too, and it's like, you know, I think that the strongest place to exist from, and I think that this is something that, you know, endurance running for sure has taught me, is like the strongest place to come from is from that deep inner self, like really where all of your emotions lay anyway, you know, and you just get in there with them and dive deep, you know?
Yes, because I don't think that feelings can ever be inherently, like, you know, evil. Like, I think it's like what we do with our feelings is kind of what shapes us, but like, gotta like feel the feelings, before, you know?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. You've got to open yourself up to them. I know that Carl Jung says, you know, what we resist persists, and I think that as far as negative emotions like anger and sadness and depression and anxiety, it's like, yeah, like, don't fight them. Get in them, you know?
Yeah.
It's not a question of, I always say it's not mind over matter, it's mind into matter.
Ooh, that's, you know, so smart.
It's like my personal mantra. It's like, oh, don't push through this. Like, get into it, you know?
Yeah, get into it, and that's how you can, like, overcome and learn from.
100%.
Wait, so I really want to talk more about that. That's such a cool mantra. I've never heard it before, and you might have just changed my life. So what eventually, like, how did you learn that? That's brilliant.
I think in my life I have struggled a lot with clinical depression and anxiety. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, I've definitely had to fight for my happiness, and I think that experience really, like, kind of almost like fighting for survival, like the way that a tiger would in the wilderness, you know? It's like,
yeah,
I think that's how I learned that, you know, because I think that whatever a mental breakdown is, I think it comes, like, when you've been running away from something for a really long time, like, your body keeps the score, you know, like we said during our last conversation. So does your mind, so does your spirit, you know?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that with me.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And the body, I think, absolutely keeps a score. You know, like, we can be, I know that, like, in our last conversation, I was talking about, like, I was going through some intense things a few years ago, and I was just like, everything's fine, I don't know what anyone's talking about, everything's totally fine, and it wasn't. Spoiler alert. No. And I developed an ulcer.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, oh, maybe I should, like, you know, address what's going on in my life. And the body absolutely keeps a score, and if you try to, like, not tune in and, like, listen to your emotions and listen to yourself, like, these things can happen. And, like, I feel like we owe it to ourselves to, you know, get in touch with our energy and feel our feelings. I think that's so important.
Absolutely. For sure. And, like, I know our conversation keeps coming full circle, but it's kind of like, this is why I love horses so much, you know? Because it's like, they've taught me about that connection. It's like, if you can connect with an animal on that level, then you can connect with yourself on that level. And it's the same thing as endurance horseback riding, how, like, you become so in tune with your horse's body and where they're at, that, you know, if you practice something like that, you can apply it to yourself. And I'm not saying that everybody should go out and get a horse. I mean, I would love to say that, but I understand that that's not everybody's thing. But I think that every human should try to find, like, an activity where they can really work on those skills, because I think that's just key to life and key to happiness.
Absolutely. Just, like, finding your passion and connecting through empathy to your passion. Mm-hmm. Because I think
100%.
And because I really do think so many things, a lot of people say, like, oh, a lot of things derive from anger. And while that may be true, I also think a lot of things derive from empathy and a will and a want to connect to those around you.
Yeah.
And that's
Absolutely.
That's why I think it's so cool that you, I don't know if anyone heard that, but, like, my recording just was like, you're at 5%. And I was like, oh, no. So if anyone heard that, I better plug in so we can finish this conversation.
Computer. You don't know.
But I think that's why it's so great that you have found and thrived in this beautiful connection to other creatures, like another living being. It's so special.
Oh, they're pretty cool.
What are they up to right now?
They're just chilling. They're just eating hay and enjoying life right now. I'm happy that I'm not out there asking them to work.
Nice. Oh my God, I really wish that I could, like, show everyone your painting. Like, I wish this was, like, not just an audio thing, because it's, like, really cool. Those eyes, man. Those are woman. Those eyes are incredible.
Thank you. I'm excited about it.
Yeah. It's so cool.
Danielle, you're so positive, and I so appreciate your encouragement and your support.
Thank you. And I think that, you know, this has been such a thrill to record with you. And I want to, like, continue talking to you after this podcast and, like, be your friend outside of this.
Danielle! Heck yeah, girl. Let's be friends.
Yes.
I love that.
Oh my God,
Or at least we're Facebook friends now.
Yes. Oh my God, I'm so excited. So that's really exciting. So yes, we are definitely continuing our friendship after this for sure.
Oh my God. I love it so much. And honestly, like, I'm not even kidding, Danielle. It's like, it's so awesome to be able to talk about these things with people, and I'm like so thankful that life is doing this for me right now, because I feel like, we have these thoughts and these conversations with ourselves, but you don't always get to share it with people in the outside world. So that's really nice.
Right. And I hope
that, like, it's like special.
Yeah, it really is, like, when you're able to connect. And I think that's, like, there's that sculpture, I think it was the Burning Man sculpture, where it was, like, the two adults and they're turned away from each other, but inside are two children trying to, like, touch each other's hands.
God. Yes, I know exactly the sculpture that you speak of.
Yes. And I really feel that the more we can open ourselves up, like, and like we were talking about with, like, spirituality and with passion, like, we all want the same thing, Oh no, I think it froze. Hold on, I'm gonna plug us in because...
Yeah. Is it still working? It
froze?
Yeah.
I know, it's totally still working, and I'm gonna keep this all in because it's kind of funny.
It's, you know what? It's authentic.
Yes, it is authenticity, and that is, like, the whole point of this podcast is authenticity. So I'm not even going to edit it out.
I love it. I like your style.
No, but it's been so amazing talking to you, and yeah, I'm so happy that I got to meet you.
Oh, Danielle, likewise, girlfriend. And, like, yeah, let's, like, we'll talk more. We'll talk more about these things in our own time.
Amazing. Well, it was amazing recording with you, and I never know how to end these podcasts. I'm gonna have to think of, like, some kind of like a little Anchorman catchphrase. That was a throwback reference. But some kind of like
it was.
We'll think about it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh. Yeah, we could. If any ideas come into my mind, I'll shoot you a text. Because there's so many great ones. I know they're, like, right there. Because this is such an incredible podcast that you and Joseph have put together. So yeah, it shouldn't be too hard.
Yes, and once we figure one out, I'm going to totally throw out some credit and be like, "That was Amanda."
Oh my God.
Awesome.
You're so funny. Only if it's good.
It will be. It'll be better than whatever I'm about to do right now, which is probably going to be like, and that's the podcast.
That's the podcast. I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, come on, something. Oh, I can't think of anything on the spot, Danielle.
That is totally okay. We will do, and that's the podcast.
That's the podcast. Peace out.
Peace out.